Hello everyone and welcome back to another Movie Nights movie review. Today we're going to be talking about Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, directed by James Mangold, starring Harrison Ford, Phoebe Waller-Bridge, and countless others. Heads up, this is a full spoiler review. You can catch our right out of the theater review on the channel, but we are going to dive full spoilers into Indiana Jones 5. If you have not seen it, please do not watch this video, bookmark it, go watch the movie and come back, or if you genuinely just don't care about spoilers, you can watch this video, just do us a favor, and don't spoil it for anyone else who has not seen the film. Hello, Nicholas.
How are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. We'll see how I feel after this review.
True. I think it's fair to say, of everyone in our group, we were the most positive on the movie.
Yeah. Marginally, too.
A lot of people in our group just straight up didn't like the film. Some people almost walked out. I'm mixed to positive on the film, and I like it personally more than Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, which is also a point of contention in our group, just that whole discussion. But I think the film does a lot right, and I think the film does a lot not so right. But overall, as a whole, while it's a different Indiana Jones movie, I enjoyed it overall.
Okay.
What are your general thoughts, and then we'll kind of dive into the spoilers.
I thought it was fine. I think I ended up giving it 3 stars, which for me is about like what I use as an average. I know 2.5 technically would be like middle, but it just lacked the Spielberg heart and touch, which I think is what resonates with a lot of the Indiana Jones fans, myself included. It's not to say James Mangold didn't make a bad movie. I think it's just, had all the Indiana Jones movies been directed by different directors and we had different styles, I feel like it might be a different conversation. But since it was Spielberg through and through, I feel like that took some readjusting.
I see. And what I'll add to that as well is I think the movie's biggest positive and negative is that it wasn't a Steven Spielberg film. Negative in the sense that I agree with you in that you feel it in the adventure scenes of like, oh, this is not a Spielberg adventure. Like you just feel it.
Flat, kind of CGI.
Like even that John Williams score, which was great. The whole score in the movie is great. Yeah. Like even like it's the combination of the score and Spielberg that like made it. And I think you don't feel it in those scenes. But on the flip side, on the positive note, there are things in this movie I didn't think we'd ever get to see in an Indiana Jones movie in a positive way. Like there's really in-depth character moments with Indiana Jones that I think were exceptionally well done that we're going to get into, that I think a Steven Spielberg version of the movie, not that it wouldn't have great character moments, but it would have done it not in this style. And I like the style in which we got those character moments for this particular film. Diving into spoilers, we'll kind of start at the top of the film. I thought the opening 20 minutes was fantastic.
I think the opening 20 minutes is the best part of the movie.
Yeah.
Personally, for me.
Yeah. It's great. The de-aging is really well done. One thing that bothered me is they did not AI his voice. So it's young face, but old voice. Yeah. And that was a bit off-putting, but for the most part, the de-aging looked great. There's a couple times where I was like, ew, but
I think in terms of de-aging that we've seen recently, I think that has been the best looking to me.
I still think Luke and Boba Fett was the best I've seen.
Luke and Boba Fett was really good.
This is better than Luke and Mando. If you don't know what we're talking about Star Wars and Mark Hamill being de-aged. It looked better than Luke and Mando. It looked better than fucking Tron. I don't know why that came to my head, but it looked better than that. It looked better than the Ant-Man stuff.
Irishman.
Looked better than Irishman. And it was good.
Yeah.
I think for a movie, I'll say this, for a movie, it's the best I've seen of the de-aging. I still don't think the technology is quite there. I still think it has some time.
I think it's just going to be a scary thing when it is.
I agree. You know? I agree.
Because there's a world where we just get an Indiana Jones movie like that. Yeah. Oh, Sam Jackson didn't look bad in
Captain Marvel. He didn't look bad. You're right.
That was fine.
Yeah.
That was like the longest use of it until Irishman came out.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Anyway, the de-aging was good.
Yeah, and the whole sequence was great. That was probably the most Spielbergian of the movie.
Yeah.
Was that. And I like the setup for the plot moving forward. And I like the through line of Hitler looking for artifacts that aren't real or like aren't the real ones. They're looking for like the blade that cut Jesus.
Yeah.
And an
Indiana Jones movie with a MacGuffin?
Yeah, crazy. But they ended up finding the Archimedes dial.
Yes.
I'm saying that wrong, I know, but
no, Archimedes dial.
Okay, great. They're looking for they find, the dial, this is some real shit, but this blade is worthless, and they get into the fight on the train. Matt Mikkelsen, who's great in the movie, somehow survives getting hit in the face at 400 miles an hour.
Yeah, that I was like,
yeah.
Huh. And he was not deformed later on in the movie. Like, if he had come back and, like, the marketing didn't show, like, a deformity or something. Like, the girl from Hereditary got clock going, 70?
Yeah.
And got decapitated. This guy on a train doesn't get obliterated.
Yeah. That was a bit funky to me.
But whatever. Moving forward.
Yeah. But we move on to Indiana Jones as an old man. He's still teaching. The world's not the same that it was. He's grumpy Harrison Ford, which we all love. And he gets visited by Phoebe Waller-Bridge's character, whose name in the movie is leaving me.
Helena,
thank you.
And that, you know what? Actually, while you say that, that's, I think, also a huge issue that I have with the movie. I swear to God, Indiana Jones, Sala, Marion.
Yeah.
Ask me anyone else's name in that movie. Could not tell you. Well, Helena, I just did.
Yeah.
Could not remember Antonia Banderas. I don't know Mads Mikkelsen. I don't know Boyd Holdbrook. I don't know her little buddy.
Yeah.
None of those characters' names I'm with.
I agree. The characters were a bit of a dud.
Yeah.
And that's how I feel about Helena. I didn't love the character. I thought Phoebe Waller-Bridge did fine. I thought her performance was fine. The character, though, was a bit lackluster. Because they started something really interesting with her if she's just interested in selling the artifacts.
Yeah.
But they don't really do a full arc. Also, the movie abandons the subplot of Indiana Jones being framed for murder like halfway through the movie. Like, in the beginning, he was like, we need to get out of New York because they think I killed this person. And then it's, like, never brought up.
Yeah, like, he's tied into it because he doesn't want to get framed for murder. And then they're just like...
And then it just leaves later on. But anyway, the first big negative of the movie happens with that chase in New York. The pacing of that chase was so strange to me. Like, they go up on the roof, and they start doing the rooftop chase with Helena. And then they go back inside to check on Indiana Jones, and he's looking at doing something. And then it goes, there's like a dialogue scene, and then it goes out into the streets, and then it's slow, and then it picks up as the chase again.
Yeah.
And I'm like, some editing there, I would have cut from the rooftop to the street, like just, and go, you know. But I just thought the pacing of that chase was a bit odd, and the CG was a bit wonky with him on the horse. That's all.
And I think just the scale of that scene is just unnecessary.
I agree.
I think that this movie had a lot of bloat. And if you look at the set pieces that they're doing in the old Indiana Jones movies, they're big, but like the car chases are happening in camera and in fields and stuff, and it just this added too many CGI noise.
Yeah, which was a similar problem with Crystal Skull as well.
Yeah.
I think that after that sequence when they go on to I forget which country they go to, but they go somewhere after they leave New York. And the movie starts to pick up again for me, personally. You start learning more about the dial. You get a lot more with the Mads Mikkelsen character, who I thought he did a great job. I thought Mads Mikkelsen was a good villain.
I think he's always good.
Yeah, he's a great actor.
Yeah.
But I like the villain character, too. Okay, I'm going to jump to the end for a second. I can't tell you how much I love the motivation of... oh, you're going to go back in time and help Hitler? He's like, no, I'm going to become Hitler, and I'm going to be way better than that asshole. Like, that is because it kind of plays funny.
I loved that kind of spin on it, because normally with these time travel things, it's I'm going to go kill baby Hitler. And he's like, no, I'm going to go kill full-grown Hitler and show that he was an idiot.
Yeah.
And that I can do it better.
Yeah. Like, that was a badass plan.
They made a mega Hitler.
Yeah. Yeah.
He wanted to be mega Hitler.
That's pretty much it. Yeah. But anyway, going back to where we were, at this point in the movie, he goes to meet Helena at the casino where they're gambling, and that leads into that chase. I didn't mind that chase. I like that chase. I like that scene in the casino. There's a great line where he says something along the lines of, Mads Mikkelsen says, you shouldn't have left New York, and Indiana Jones says, you shouldn't have invaded Poland. And I'm like, that's Indiana Jones.
Indy hates a Nazi.
Yeah. And leading into the movie, eventually you get to where, like the character scenes I was mentioning before that I don't think we would have gotten before. It briefly mentions on a television that Mutt, his son from the fourth movie, has died. And that him and Marion are divorced. You get that in the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
Or they filed for divorce, I think. You then find out that Mutt enlisted into, I assume, Vietnam and was killed. And there's a great moment where Helena is talking to Indiana Jones, and they find out that like the dial, you're supposed to like be able to find fissures in time and go back and do all these things. And it's this adventure conversation of like, oh, could you imagine if you had this? And she looks at our, like, Indiana Jones, the person we've been with through all these movies, and goes, oh my God, if you had this dial, like, where would you go?
Yeah.
And he somberly says, I would go back and I would stop my son from enlisting. Mm-hmm. And like that, I was like, oh, like Spielberg would have never given us that. Like we would have gotten a great character moment because Spielberg is the GOAT, obviously. Yeah. But like that specifically. And that following scene of him saying, like, she was like, what would you tell him? And she said, and he's like, I would tell him he's going to die and that he's going to tear his mother and I apart. Like that monologue from Harrison Ford, who crushed it, by the way. Like, I love that sequence. I thought it was excellent.
Well, because they never addressed that he died at that point, just that you knew that they were getting divorced.
There was a brief radio in the beginning, like when he was on the run, where they mentioned, like, we think he might be involved in this murder going off the rails after the death of his son.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
Like it was like a quick thing. Mm-hmm. And I love that sequence.
Way to turn a bad character into a powerful moment.
Yeah. Love that sequence. Mm-hmm. And I didn't love the underwater sequence with the shipwreck. That, like, the bloat that you described, that's where I really felt it there. I was like, what are we doing? Like, what are we doing with this?
Well, that and Morgan actually was talking about, too, like, ears popping.
Yeah.
They would have been, like, annihilated at any point in that sequence.
Yeah, for sure.
Eardrums.
And I also think that...
and an absolute waste of Antonio Banderas.
Yes. But I like that scene where Phoebe Waller-Bridge is pretending that she's on their side and she's trying to light the flare with Indy. I love that sequence. Yeah. I liked Indiana Jones in the action scenes, even when it's not a step number, when it's just Harrison Ford. The dude's like 80 years old and he's throwing punches and doing shit.
He was doing great, yeah.
And by the way, he has his shirt off in the beginning. He's in better shape than I'm in. And he's 80 years old. Right. I'm like, Jesus Christ. Like, I wish I'm that much shape when I'm 80. But anyway, going back to the film, like where we were at, it really started to grab me again when it gets to the third act, going into that final piece of Archimedes' Dial. Mm-hmm. I didn't like that the kid got kidnapped and then they took the kid. However, I like the kid just straight up drowning that big motherfucker. I was like, all right,
yeah, I was like, get Jesus,
him.
All right,
yeah, that was awesome.
I wasn't a big fan of that. The kid,
yeah, the character. It was a weak character.
It was just you could have cut him out in the movie.
I agree.
You don't really lose or gain much, but like when I watched that scene, I was like, okay,
yeah,
go on.
As far as child performances go, he wasn't terrible, and I don't really like to comment on child performances, so unless they're great.
Yeah.
So, but going into the third act of the movie, when they have the dial and the Nazis' hubris, as we've seen in the past, is getting the best of him. And he's like, no, Indy, you're going to come with me and you're going to see me take over the world and like become Mega Hitler, as you put it. Yeah. And Indiana Jones, for some reason, this reminded me of The Fugitive when he's just like, continental drift. They didn't account for continental drift. And it's just like, you could tell that the Nazi wants to be like, oh, he's right. But he's like, no, we've worked this hard.
Yeah.
We got to go through this time fissure. And they go through this lost a lot of the people in my audience. I ate this shit up. Like, this was such a positive for me.
See, I don't understand how... I mean, I can understand where it loses people, but, like, we've had face-melting arcs. We have had encounters with ghosts who have preserved... Harrison Ford, Indiana Jones has drank from the Holy Grail.
Yeah.
Aliens are in Crystal
I was going to say
Skull.
aliens.
Yeah, like time travels where like
that's where people draw the line.
That's the line.
And what I loved is that it wasn't a time travel trope of, oh, we're going to go back in all the movies and fix shit. Mm-hmm. It was just to one place. And I like that that's what the Nazis were wrong about. And they figured out when they got there is Archimedes was just trying to get help from the future. Yeah. And that's what he was doing.
It was never, you could never time travel.
It was never a device.
Well, it was time travel. You're just going to one place.
Yes. Yeah. And that was really cool. And that whole sequence, by the way, was great. I loved Indiana Jones almost staying behind and just being like, I've studied this my whole life. Like, I'm seeing it with my own eyes. Like, I bought it. I bought the performance.
See, I kind of wish that, and that's where I kind of start to fade out, is because I kind of wish that he would have stayed, because they do that whole thing of, like, the preservation. He could be causing unknown ripples and stuff.
Yeah.
It's Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
Would he have?
Yeah.
You know? Like, the man who studied all his life, I feel like I would buy into him being able to navigate that.
Yeah. And
also, he had a gunshot wound, and it was 200 BC.
Yeah,
he would have been dead in a week.
Yeah. I think that I wouldn't have hated it if he stayed there. And I don't hate that they made it back. I hate that we didn't see it.
Yeah.
But to be fair, they mention that like the portal's going to close and they need to hurry. So all that happens is they get in the plane and they go in the portal.
Yeah.
But it still would have been nice to create some tension of like, it's going to close. Like we need to make it through. Maybe the tail of the plane gets cut off going through, you know.
They have to spy.
Yeah, just something.
But again, is that just unnecessary bloat?
Exactly. But
had they cut other sequences and then had that.
But it's better than knockout punch, wakes up and back home.
Like, but even the whole scene with Archimedes, like him realizing what Archimedes' plan was, I thought was really, really cool.
Yeah,
like
that was great.
Moment where Archimedes is like, "Oh shit!" Like, this worked.
Yeah, dude, I loved it. I loved that whole sequence. I thought that was excellent.
And I loved everyone thinking it's a dragon, and that these Romans took out a plane like it was nothing.
Yeah.
Easy as shit. They're shooting him with machine guns and they're taking him down with spears. Like, it doesn't matter.
And okay, they set up early in the movie that the kid was learning how to fly a plane, but I still didn't buy it. Like,
I don't think he should have been there.
No.
But I guess they need to get back.
You could have, listen, if you really wanted to dig deep there, you could have had Jacques from Raiders of the Lost Ark show up, the guy who flies them in the beginning. Like, you could have done something like that.
Yeah.
By the way, Sala in the movie, phenomenal.
Yeah.
That whole sequence with Sala and that performance, phenomenal.
The only thing that I was a little bit upset about, but also I've just come to accept this with Blockbuster, is watching the trailer. When you cut to Sala and he's like, "Give him hell, Indiana Jones." And like the trailers are better than the movie. Yeah. I'll say that. And then they cut it with the joke of him almost getting hit by the car. And I'm like, oh, come on. That was such a good moment.
Yeah. And I also... I don't like that they were marketing that moment as the call to adventure.
Yeah.
When it was like 2 seconds in the movie.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I thought Sala's role was good and he played it well. I thought Toby Jones was great. Yeah. In the opening sequence. I thought he was great. Yeah.
Dad, yeah.
And the second here's what I'll give you about the de-aging stuff. The second flashback when he's a little bit older, flawless. The de-aging on the second flashback was insane.
When he goes to Helenda's house, to Toby Jones' house, yeah.
Dude, like
he's a little older, they grade him a bit. Yeah.
That one, I was like, holy shit. Like, that looks great.
Yeah.
Like, there were zero flaws with that sequence. But yeah, overall, I enjoyed the movie.
And the ending. Marion,
I enjoyed that. That worked for me.
Yeah.
Personally.
It just felt, I don't know. They get together again. It's like.
Yeah, but to me, it felt right because I don't think he was ever going to go back and admit he was wrong in that way. And I think Phoebe Waller-Bridge, like, reaching out to Mary, like, I think that was
I think her just showing up and acting like, oh, he's back. Like, he's fine. Like, and they're not, Yeah. And then, again, that's probably all stuff off screen, but still that moment kind of jarred. It was great seeing her and the two of them together again. And they did what the Star Wars sequels couldn't do, and they got all three of them in a room together. You got Marion, Sala, and Indy.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
What I will say,
if she had bookended the movie.
Okay.
If she had showed up in the beginning, handed him the papers, like if we had gotten that, maybe I would buy that a little more.
Okay.
I mean, I bought it, but like, I didn't feel the impact. I was more like, oh, Marion's here.
Yeah. It worked for me, but I fully see what you mean. And here's what I will say. I watched Dan Murrell's review of the movie, and he brought up a good point I didn't even consider. And he was like, if someone told me, hey, do you want to go watch the movie where an older Harrison Ford is so distraught by the loss of his son that it actually ruins his marriage and goes on this journey where he has to come back and realize he was wrong for doing that and then has to like try to rekindle the family he has left, I would have said, yeah, I like The Force Awakens. What are you talking about? So I didn't realize that, but it's like, oh, it is remarkably similar. And what I will say to like the Phoebe Waller-Bridge character, the one thing I'll give her character is they basically made her a Han Solo type. So you got to see the dichotomy there of like that type of character with Indiana Jones. And I thought the relationship worked well and her performance worked well. I think the character could have been better written. And like you said, the characters throughout the movie could have been better written. But overall, I think there's great character moments. I think half of the action's great. I think the score's great. Cinematography's great. Most of the VFX were great.
I mean, I think James Mangold's a solid director.
Yeah, I just don't think it's as good as the other films. And I think it's a perfectly fine movie.
Right now I have it above Crystal Skull, and I want to rewatch Crystal Skull because I rewatched 1, 2, and 3, and then this one I didn't get a chance just timing wise to rewatch it. So I do want to watch it because I really do think the Spielberg aspect of it does actually provide a lot. It's just been so long since I've seen it.
Yeah, fair.
But I mean, I don't think James Mangold is a bad director.
Oh no,
I don't think.
No, he's one of the best working.
I think that this might be one of his weaker ones that I've seen.
I'll give you that. I think of his filmography, it's middle to the bottom.
Well, which Wolverine did he do?
2 and 3. It's better than Wolverine 2.
Yeah,
it's far better than Wolverine 2.
I like Night and Day. The Tom Cruise.
Cameron,
I'll say it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it doesn't touch Logan. It doesn't touch Ford v Ferrari.
Walk the Line.
Yeah. So, but I mean, I am excited for his Swamp Thing movie. Me too. I don't think that this added more excitement to it. Yeah. I don't think it took away though either.
Yeah, I agree completely.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's our review of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next review.